Hello and welcome to another TED Talk. No, I'm just kidding. Hello, welcome to another nutrition seminar with Evan McGovern. And today we're going to talk about effective weight loss. Numero uno. Disclaimer, I am not a medical doctor. I am not your medical doctor. This is for educational purposes only. So, we're going to start off by discussing how most diets fail and why they fail. 80% of diets fail. Half of those people gain back more than they started with before the diet. That's kind of where we are at as a culture. There's a lot of hyper awareness about dieting during January, but in reality, what you do after the diet is actually more important than the diet itself. If you can't do the diet for 30 days, you probably won't be able to do it for 30 years. So sustainability is king. Okay, so here we have on the left side is the stereotypical yo-yo dieting, also known as crash dieting, where you lose so much weight so fast that it's not real. It's not real because why? Because it's water weight. And if you lose, 6 pounds in a week or 10 pounds in a week, you're going to lose a lot of muscle mass, right? Which is not good for your metabolism. Your metabolism is wreaking havoc, right? Reverse dieting, however, is the simple idea that after the diet, you slowly increase your calories as time goes on. So you can see you start at the bottom, and then you're bringing your calories up and your metabolism up. All right. So that's you don't want to go too fast. If you bring your calories up too fast, you will get really hungry and inevitably overeat. The metabolism never changes quickly. It never does. So you have to accommodate that for a slower change. Anything you do with nutrition should be slow changes, not drastic ones. So what's your definition of good nutrition? What would you say?
Incorporating plant-based food.
Maybe, kinda. It's not bad, not horrible, but the definition we're going to go by was given to me by Precision Nutrition. They've worked with brands such as Lifetime Fitness, Nike, Titleist, Seattle Seahawks, which might be going to the Super Bowl pretty soon in about 4 days. So according to Precision Nutrition, it's simply the ability to control your energy balance. So I know that sounds really simplistic, but what that means is if your goal is to lose 1 pound of body weight per week, and you actually do that, then you're considered successful, and that's considered good nutrition, irregardless of your food choices. That wasn't a very clean food choice, I shouldn't have had that treat. Well, if your weight loss is on par, that's like saying, I'm playing golf and my swing was way off, but if the ball went in the hole, it's doesn't matter. If the ball goes in the hole, that's the only thing that matters, right? So a lot of people get so preoccupied with the perfect diet and they forget about the main thing, which is calorie energy balance. I know I'm talking kind of fast, but CICO versus insulin obesity model. Now, this is the big picture. When we talk about the grand scheme of everything ever published on the internet. Hi, come on in. I'm Evan. Yeah. So we're just getting started. So anything published on the internet regarding nutrition is considered either coming from a CICO model point of view, or it's coming from an insulin obesity model point of view. Science versus kind of what I call an incorrect theory. Because calories in, calories out is based upon the laws of thermodynamics. Insulin obesity model, you'll hear people say outrageous claims like, don't eat any white bread, don't eat any white pasta, don't eat any white, because it's going to make you obese. Sugar does not make you obese inherently. Sugar does not cause fat gain inherently. Any food in a caloric deficit is okay in moderation, okay? So just want to make that aware for you guys. Now, these are our terms: caloric surplus versus caloric deficit. Very simple. Where you consume more than you burn off, where you burn off more than you consume. Well, Coach Evan, I was in a caloric deficit this week, but I just didn't drop any weight. By definition, the person was not in a caloric deficit, okay? So it's important. So feed the muscle, starve the fat, right? That's really what it is. It's controlled starvation. you're going to adopt some form of a higher protein diet or a moderately high protein diet so that you can keep your muscle, because that's a very unique thing. It takes work to build muscle, right? But you got to starve the fat, right? So lower carbs, lower fats, moderately low, right? You don't do anything extreme. You don't say, I'm cutting out all carbs, I'm cutting out all fats. Neither of those is good. So energy balance looks like this, like a seesaw. You got calories out right there. Just explaining the deficit and the surplus once again. Okay. Now, I thought I'd throw this in there because sometimes you get questions about this. Fasted cardio versus non-fasted cardio. Now, based off what we know off of calories in, calories out, what do you think the answer would be regarding to, is fasted cardio a better approach, let's say for a bodybuilder or just a regular lifestyle person? Or is the non-fasted, I had breakfast and I'm going to go do cardio? Well, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter, because the moment you eat breakfast after you did cardio, you're storing fat again, right? The only caveat is that when you do it fasted, you're not going to perform as good because you don't have the energy for it. So sometimes, and this was wildly popular in the 90s amongst bodybuilders. They were like, yeah, fasted cardio, you burn way more calories of fat, bro. But there was no real science to back it up. Okay. What does increasing your metabolism do? Well, we didn't really mention this particular thing, but the end game goal for dieting is to be able to increase your metabolism so that instead of dieting off of 1,200 calories, you're now dieting off of 1,600 calories and losing the same amount of weight off a higher calorie count. Is that really possible? Yes it is. But you have to do like a reverse diet, like we talked about. So real quick, just for your sake, I'll go back. This is a reverse diet. On the right, you slowly increase your calories to where your metabolism can kind of grow over time, all right? Which is the opposite of like yo-yo dieting, doing things really extreme. It is true that you should treat a diet like a sprint and be a little bit aggressive with it. Like for you guys, maybe like 400 to 500 calorie deficit daily. But at some point, you gotta restore that metabolism. All right, let me go back. Yeah. Okay, so to intake higher calories while maintaining a healthy body fat percentage is important. More calories equals more muscle, which means higher metabolism. More vitamins, more minerals, more nutrients. So it makes no sense to quibble about little things like you're eating the wrong vegetable here, the right vegetable there, when at the end of the day, if you can just grow your metabolism, you can intake way more vitamins and minerals and nutrients and calories, right? Because you're getting like 30% more calories than you normally would. So that's a better argument, right? And you want to become a fat burning machine. If you ever do like a metabolic assessment, there's two types. There's the resting metabolic assessment and there's the active metabolic assessment. The resting will tell you, are you a carb burner, a sugar burner, or are you a fat burner? And I did it, a couple years ago, and they're like, man, you're burning like 99% fat. How is that possible? I'm like, because I'm doing everything right. I'm doing everything optimal. I'm building as much muscle as possible, and I'm not doing sources of exercise that burn carbs. Which is, if you want to burn carbs, just do sprints, right? Or whatever. But you want to do slow, steady cardio, and you want to lift weights. They're both kind of boring at the end of the day, but they work. All right. 4 things that affect metabolism. Okay. Number 1. Oh, hold on. So let's just think about this. What is a metabolism? Can anybody give me a definition?
Your body uses nutrients to sustain.
Close. What about you?
Put it into words. It's like different.
Right, I'll just tell you. It's the body's ability to burn calories. That's it. It's an engine. Just like when you put a pizza in the oven, you leave it in there for 4 hours, you're like, hey, I've just burned 1,000 calories. No, I'm just kidding. Well, no. But it's the ability to burn calories. So everybody has a baseline, right? So you and I and all us, maybe you're at 1,200, to be in a deficit, but maybe your maintenance is near like 2,000, right? Maybe my maintenance is close to 3,000 because I'm a guy, right? Well, these are the things to speed it up. Number one, exercise. Exercise activity thermogenesis. Max recoverable volume. So every factor we talk about has a point of diminishing return. You can't do 7 days of training for 100 sets each workout every week. You have to have at least some rest days, right? So max recoverable volume by definition is the amount of volume, weights times reps times sets that you can do in a week and recover from that and do it on repeat infinitely. So that's the definition. Recommended 3 to 5 days a week for most people. That's what I recommend of weightlifting. Prioritize anaerobic exercise, resistance with weights, due to limited energy. So like you can't work out for 3 hours if you're on a diet because you just don't have the energy to do that. So there's just a lot of factors, but what you can do is train hard and do it frequently, right? Consistently. TEF. This is another thing that affects your metabolism that is the most important thing on this whole thing. It is your makeup of what the macros you're actually eating. So protein is up to 30% thermogenic, whereas carbs and fats are like 6 to 8% thermogenic. So has anybody heard of this little thing called ketogenic dieting? Well, this doesn't present a very strong argument for keto because keto is like 70% fat, 20% protein, and like 10%, carbs. It's way off. It's very imbalanced. And you want to utilize the most fat-burning food in the world, which is protein. Okay? 30% of every calorie you consume of a protein shake gets burnt up. It's like it doesn't count. It's very hard to convert protein into fat. Okay? So you're going to have to adopt some kind of high protein diet model, right? We'll talk a little bit more about that later. So then all you can do is eat adequate protein. Okay? NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. This is what I'm doing right now. I'm not asleep and I'm not exercising. I'm doing little daily activities of living, fidgeting, I'm talking, all that kind of stuff. Fat burners speed up your heart rate at rest. Not during cardio, not during exercise. At rest, your heart is going a little fast. But it's not recommended because you could go into cardiac arrest. It's like, I took fat burners when I first got into bodybuilding like 10 years ago, and it was so unhealthy because you become addicted to caffeine very quickly. So that's what you don't want to do. Can you do anything to really increase that particular part of your metabolism? No, and you should not even try to. Okay. Also, something to note: underweight people, like skinny people, have a very high needs. They're very squirrely and all over the place, right? Whereas overweight people are just kind of like, hello, how are you? They're not moving around as much. BMR, basal metabolic rate, resting metabolism. This is the one that every trainer loves to just pounce on, They're like, if you just build more muscle, you can have a faster metabolism. Well, it's true, but it might take you a year to put on 10 pounds of muscle mass, right? Even if you're doing everything right. So that takes time, and it is, calories you burn at rest. But your protein intake's not going to change drastically like your carbs will because your muscle mass is pretty constant. Okay, all of these things combined, your exercise, your TEF, your NEAT, and your BMR, that's called your total daily energy expenditure. And that is the amount of calories you need to eat every day. Okay? So, all you can do at the end of the day, eat enough protein, train enough, build enough muscle, and get younger. No, you can't do that. But your resting metabolism doesn't slow down until age 60. So that's another really big myth. Everybody loves to make excuses. Well, my metabolism slowed down in my 40s. Well, it's just not a thing. All right, there it is. But after age 60, it slows down 1% each year. So it does go down pretty fast. So that's why you got to continue to enforce good habits, weight training to prevent sarcopenia, which is muscle loss, age-related sarcopenia. So this is actually from Dynamic Personal Training. There it is. Concrete proof. Muscle mass declines 3 to 8% per decade after the age of 30 if you're not doing anything to maintain it. When you lose muscle, you become more insulin resistant. Did you know people that have more muscle can handle sugar better? It's true.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Struggle with blood sugar, management fatigue, increased hunger using stored energy, fat for food. Okay. Muscle gain is a large surplus of, well, I know this isn't about weight loss, but I want to mention it because it's nutrition. Is it necessary to dirty bulk? I don't know, a lot of these younger guys do that, but the answer is actually no. For anyone looking to build muscle, you just need to eat close to maintenance calories. The difference in muscle gain was insignificant between the two groups, but the strength of the surplus group went up a lot. So if you want to be like a strongman competitor and get really strong, you have to eat like thousands of calories. But otherwise, you don't have to. Maintenance or a slight surplus, yep. So I recommend like a 250 calorie surplus just to gain a little bit. Now for anybody saying, well, I don't want to do that. I don't even want to lose weight. I just want to maintain. Well, maintaining is actually the hardest thing to do in the world because you have to eat exactly maintenance calories, and it's almost impossible to do that. You know, I don't want to lean bulk. Yeah, and the idea of maintenance will cost you muscle in the long run because you're not really changing your body. You're not going in any direction to make progress. Is it possible to build too much muscle naturally? Not really. There's a thing called the FFMI data was collected from the 1940s from like 200 natural bodybuilders. This is only males, but you can do this with females too. Fat-free mass index is how much muscle do you have per your leanness. Okay, if you took those two integers and made a ratio out of that. So 25 is considered the limit for how big and lean you can be at the same time naturally. Like if your FFMI is like 28, you're probably on steroids. You're probably the Rock Dwayne Johnson, right? So, so here's an example of a calculator that how it works. You plug in your height, your weight, your body fat, and then right here, for a guy, if he lands there, that's above average. Once you get to about 22, you start to look like you lift. Then 23, you got good genetics. 24, you might be on steroids. And then 25, there's no way. So, hey, welcome. Yeah, I'm Evan. Okay.
Sorry, that's right.
Okay. So, all right. Point is, there is a limit. It might take you 15 to 20 years of consistency to really reach the genetic limit. You know. I'm actually there. I'm at 23, which is about as good as I'm ever going to get. I'm 35. I've been lifting for 18 years consistently. So it's something to take note of, because if you think you're going to build too much muscle, plug in these numbers. It'll humble you really quickly. So so how do you actually increase your metabolism? We talked about that reverse diet. You're probably like, well, I thought this was a fat loss class. Well, it is, but remember, what you do after the diet is more important. So you have to kind of switch gears in your mind on a reverse diet. The goal is that, and I just want you to pretend for a second, pretend you just lost 20 pounds and you're ready to be done with the diet. The goal is not to build muscle. The goal is not even to burn fat or to stay lean. The primary goal is just to slowly restore your metabolism by slowly increasing about 50 calories per week for as long as the diet was. Okay? So if the diet was 12 weeks, you need to reverse diet for 12 weeks. Okay? And it's kind of scary, especially if you've never done it before. But I've reverse dieted for over a decade, and I love it. And it makes me feel good, and I get my energy back, and I get strong again, and all that kind of stuff. So how long, we talked about that, or until your weight becomes linear, which is kind of scary. Think about if you just increased your calories to the point where you would stop gaining weight. You probably think, well, I would look like a sumo, wrestler, right? No, you wouldn't. I think because of weight set point theory, you're only going to fluctuate by about 30 pounds in your lifetime. You say, well, what's the point of dieting if I got weight set point theory telling me that I'll never, change my body? You will, and you'll make significant health changes. What I want y'all to understand is every major health benefit of weight loss is not because of the food choices, but because of the weight loss itself. Every measurable health marker, including blood sugar, cholesterol, LDL, all these things improve. Insulin resistance, they all improve simply by losing the weight. So you don't want to get too caught up with, what's the perfect diet? What's the perfect food? Because too much of this is good, this is bad. That idea needs to go in the garbage. All food is good in moderation, okay? And that goes back to the insulin obesity model that, especially with sugar. But so this is just an anecdote. My maintenance went from about 2950 during my cutting season for bodybuilding, and then it went up to 3800 in my off season while maintaining my weight. So I was not gaining any weight eating almost 4,000 calories. So it doesn't, anyway, maybe you don't want to do that, but so this is going to be a fat loss pyramid. At the bottom is the most important thing on a diet. See, I'm starting a diet. It's January. Well, it better be sustainable, and you better be able to adhere to it, which is why I recommend tracking your macros and your calorie count, because that's the only way to really ensure that you're actually hitting the number of calories that you need to every day. Number two, if your goal is fat loss, then the caloric deficit needs to be maintained. Okay? Number three is exercise. There's not a single doctor that will tell you, you need to lose weight, so diet alone. You're not going to say diet alone, it's going to say diet and exercise, because you need to preserve muscle mass as you shrink yourself. Self-monitoring. Well, anything from measuring yourself with a tape measure to stepping on a scale to tracking your calories, those are all forms of self-monitoring. And what good does that do me? Well, it actually builds intrinsic motivation, or even a selfie in the mirror, because you say, wow, it looked like 4 weeks ago I was over there, and now look where I'm at now. So it's important to track and actually make sure, you want to feel like you're crushing it. You're crushing your goals, Protein and fiber intake is actually the next most important thing, because this is kind of a theory, but I would say if you eat the right amount of protein and the right amount of fiber, that would fix 99% of gut issues, because I've just seen it happen. I used to be allergic to 10 different things. Now I'm not allergic to anything, talking about food. So carbs and fat macros take a back seat. Why are carbs and fat macros not as important as protein and fiber? Because they're interchangeable. As long as protein and calories are equated, your body composition will be the same. Okay, so you could do a really high carb diet and lose weight, or you could do a really high fat diet, low carb diet and lose weight. Either way, you're burning fat because of the deficit, and you're keeping your muscle because of the protein. All right, last thing is supplements. There is no magic pill, but there are pills that are out there, and they do exist. But like I say, you got to be able to adhere, because dieting takes time. Wolverine, what's his name? Hugh Jackman said, your best friend when it comes to getting in shape for a movie role is time. Because you don't want to do something aggressive if you don't have to. Adherence. One study reported women track calories up to 70% accurately. Sorry. I just thought I would put that in there. What are my options? Go into maintenance immediately, not recommended. Yeah, so, okay. If we want to talk real talk, when you're done with a diet, these are the 4 things that are possible. You could either try to go right into maintenance, okay? But you'll end up being in a big surplus. Why? Because you haven't given your metabolism time to grow and to heal yet. That's why we go slowly. Number 2, do whatever you want. I'm just going to eat intuitively. Nobody's the boss of me anymore. I'm just going to do what I want. That's also a bad idea because you're going to end up overeating again. You gain weight very quickly if you do that. Reverse dieting. Most of the time, this is the best choice, especially if you do a longer cut, like longer than 10 weeks, like 12 weeks. Keep dieting because you haven't really hit your goal yet. This is pretty common for a lot of people that I train because they've been dieting for 4 months and they've only lost 5 pounds. Well, they're training hard, but they're not really reducing their calories like they're supposed to. You have to be somewhat motivated to stay in a deficit. You know, when I did my show a year and a half ago, I lost 28 pounds in 18 weeks. You know, and I was already lean, you know, but because I was motivated, because I had an end goal in mind. So having that is important. Recovery diet is like if you're near starvation and you need to like pig out. That's what competitors do. Most competitors just pig out. I never did that. Just because I don't think that's healthy. So the trick isn't dieting faster, harder, or stricter. Okay? It's reverse dieting. And it's the unseen thing because it's not actually done during the diet. You set yourself up for success in your off season by increasing your calories, by getting strong, and then you're able to diet on higher calories. Okay. Oh yeah, this is... Anyway. Alright, so if you're not actively pursuing muscle building, then that's just called starvation. It's true. Some people you see, they're really good at gaining muscle, but they're not very good at fat loss. Or some people are really good at losing weight, but they can't build muscle to save their lives. You don't want to be either one of those categories. So good nutrition we talked about is defined by the ability to control your energy balance. So you went over that. So golden rule of fat loss: don't lose more than 1% of your body weight per week. This will keep you from crash dieting. If you're 200 pounds, it means you don't lose more than 2 pounds per week. If you're 150 pounds, you don't lose more than 1.5 pounds per week. This is like the only way to diet, in my opinion. Talked about that. Okay, all about protein. I thought I would kind of take a glimpse at each macro. Protein, a lot of people are like, this is the best source of protein. It's a plant-based, which, like, I love plant-based stuff, but honestly, plant-based is the worst source of protein. It is. It's a good source of fiber and some nutrients and antioxidants and all that kind of stuff. But you got to look at the amino acid profile when you're looking at protein. So dairy and whey and egg white protein are the richest sources of leucine. That's particularly important for building muscle. It's an amino acid that triggers muscle protein synthesis. So it doesn't just build muscle, it supports fat loss because it's thermogenic, right? It's highly satiating. If you've ever had a large steak, you're not hungry for hours after that, right? You feel full. All right, 4 calories per gram. It's very difficult to store as fat. Okay, we got 2 slides about carbs. A healthy individual should be able to ingest a high carbohydrate diet by every means. Someone who's active, someone who can process carbs. But nobody is born that way. You have to become an athlete. So higher carbs means more fiber, less fat, more food volume, more vegetables and fruit potentially, more readily available glycogen for your muscles, and more energy. Okay? Don't fear carbs alone. So I want to just talk about how carbs gets the blame for every junk food. Guess what? Every junk food is not just carbs. It's carbs and fats. Pizza, donuts, pasta, like all these things that we say, oh, it's because it's carbs, that's why. Well, most of the calories are coming from fat. So is it really carbs to blame? I don't think so. 2% of your adipose fat tissue on your body right now, 2%. That means if you have 40 pounds of fat on you right now, then only like one pound of that came from carbs. Is that not astounding? I mean, it's crazy. Carbs are the body's primary source of actual ATP, which is actually real energy. Energy drinks do not give you energy. They block receptors for adenosine in the brain to make you feel less tired. They wake you up. They stimulate your central nervous system. Processed, hyperpalatable foods contain carbs. Not what we're talking about, like donuts and pizza and all that. So like if I say carbs, I'm talking like actual food items that you can grow, like barley and wheat and rice and corn, like actual food. There's no fat in any of that, which is why eating mostly whole foods is a good idea, because you eliminate a lot of fats by doing that. Go to a fast food restaurant and order a large Happy Meal and see how much fats you get in that diet. You're gonna get like 80 grams of fat, which is probably more than you need for the whole day, right? So 3 types of carbs. You got fiber. This is really important to understand. Fiber, sugar, and starch. All sugar is carbs. All fiber is carbs. All starches is carbs. So you got, fructose, sucrose, glucose, galactose, maltose. Those are all sugars. Is one sugar better than another? No. At the end of the day, they're all 4 calories per gram. Not, this one doesn't make you more obese than that one, okay? Starch, any vegetable or non-sugar gram of. So a lot of people use the word starch to describe certain things, like, oh, potato, that's a starch. No, potato contains starch. There's even candy that contains starch, right? Anything that has starches in it is gonna. So anyway, they use it improperly. In my opinion, the only people who should be avoiding carbs are diabetics. Okay, they should be. I dated a girl last year that was diabetic, but she still ate sugar because she had her insulin right there with her. I don't recommend that, but she's done it her whole life and she kind of knows. So the more fat you eat, the more fat you store. It's true. It really is. Some people say, well, the more fat you eat, the more fat you burn. No, that's not true. Ketosis is not a requirement for fat metabolism. There's a difference between fat burning and fat loss. Everybody in this gym right now, whether it be like 1,000 people, they're all burning fat, but very few are actually achieving fat loss. Your body is constantly burning fat. When we talked about burning calories at rest, you're constantly at rest burning calories. It's a never-ending process. But the net difference between what you store by eating and what you burn by exercise will give you the net difference of fat loss. It's very different. Fats will always taste good. Well, just put some butter on that. My grandmammy used to put the butter on it and it tastes so good. Well, why does it taste so good? Because your tongue can detect, double phosphobilipid layer, whatever molecules of the fat, and it just knows it tastes good because it's 9 calories per gram. Especially in a diet, you will crave fats and you don't know why, because it's so calorically dense. Your body's like, I need calories, give me calories. And you're like, no, I'm not gonna do that. So 3,500 calories equal to 1 pound of fat storage. So, if you train heavy leg day 4 days in a week, which nobody can do that, even if you could, that would only be 1,600 calories. So you would burn maybe half a pound with no caloric restriction. However, if you implement caloric restriction, which means you're dieting, then you can remove those calories from your diet, from your life, and you can actually achieve like a pound or so of fat loss per week, right? So you cannot lose weight without dieting. It's impossible. You can't improve the way you look without dieting at all. Even someone who builds more muscle, they're not going to look better until they get lean again, okay? So fats can be satiating, but are easy to overeat, right? So that's actually why the ketogenic diet took off, right? Because like, hey, I've been eating butter in my coffee in the morning. And it works. Of course it works because it's very satiating, okay? But I challenge you, try to measure 120 calories of olive oil. That's 1 tablespoon. You'll be like, that's good, but it's too much. It's like you need to put on gloves it's like when you're handling uranium. It's like you just gotta be careful. So controlling energy balance means controlling your weight. We talked about that a little bit. Let's keep going. Things you should not do to increase your metabolism. Eat more meals throughout the day exclusively. Notice that word exclusively. Because eating more meals, if I just had a bag of Doritos 5 times a day, would that be a good diet? No. Why? Because there's no protein in there. So you've heard it said, if you eat more meals frequently throughout the day, you'll boost your metabolism. You've heard that. Well, it's true if you incorporate protein in every meal, because that accentuates the thermic effect of protein, right? So, apple cider vinegar speeds up digestion, not your metabolism, okay? It makes you feel good. It tastes good. A lot of things make you feel good. Stretching makes you feel good, but it doesn't increase your metabolism. Spicy foods is an appetite suppressant, okay? Carb blockers is a complete scam, but it does exist. White kidney bean extract. Basically, it cakes onto the sides of your intestinal wall and makes you less hungry. I don't recommend it. Fat burners, caffeine pills, avoid this at all costs. This would be the fastest way to end your little existence on this earth if you do too much of that. Excessive cardio becomes efficient very quickly, not good. No good. So, look, cardio has its place in the fat loss arena. However, I would not start off with lots of cardio. I would slowly, gradually bring it in, introduce it in, because you need to first prove that I can get in a deficit with no cardio first. And then, when you can prove that to me, Coach Evan, then I will start, probably on the back half. On the back half of your diet. So if you're dieting for 12 weeks, first 6 weeks, no cardio, last 6 weeks, do cardio. It just works better that way, because you become efficient at cardio. Your body, what used to burn 100 calories per session, is now burning only 60 calories per session. So you'll plateau with the effectiveness of the cardio. Appetite suppressants do not speed up your metabolism. Okay? For example, Ozempic. Okay? All they do is make you not want to eat as much food. Okay? There's no scientific definition of clean eating. Well, the keto diet says that carbs are unclean. The carnivore diet says that vegetables are unclean. The paleo diet says that processed food is unclean. At the end of the day, none of that is science. Your body only knows carbs, fats, and proteins. Macros are the big picture. You've been so brainwashed to think that certain foods are good, certain foods are bad. But your micros, your vitamins and your minerals, does anybody get rickets anymore? How about scurvy? Does anybody get scurvy? Because those are nutrient deficiencies like vitamin C. Nobody gets those anymore because we have enough vitamins, okay? So if you take the multivitamin 7 days a week, but then you forget to take it one day next week, it's not going to kill you. But what does affect you is the amount of calories you're eating every day, because that is the biggest driver of health-related comorbidities such as cancer, diabetes, obesity, all these things, right? So, debunking sugar myths. All carbs convert to glycogen. Sugar does not inherently cause weight gain. Okay? Well, I had a cupcake, so I better not work out the rest of the week because I feel so guilty about my cupcake. No, because you can still fit your cupcake into your macros and be okay with it. It's not going to kill you. Now, don't eat 5 cupcakes a day every day, but you know what I'm saying? Moderation is going to be okay. No food in a deficit causes weight gain. Sugar does not cause obesity or diabetes. Diabetics have to monitor their glucose, however, but it does not cause diabetes. Sugar is not as addictive as cocaine, despite what people say, or what rats say, because that's what they're doing. They're testing rats. The rats really like the sugar. Well, no wonder, they've never had it before. So, is it hyperpalatal? Yes. That is the only thing you need to be concerned about, is eating too much of it because it tastes so darn good. Carbohydrates are the body's primary source of energy. We talked about that. High carb diets actually outperform low carb diets. Now, when I say high carb, do I mean eating 2 pizzas a day? No. I mean relatively, your fats are a little bit lower, like maybe 20% fat, and your carbs are like 50%, versus low carb, which is very hard to stick to. The reason they outperform is because you can't diet as long on a low carb diet. 90% of the grocery store is carbohydrates. You're going to eventually run out of things to eat. weeks. So, you want to say anything? Okay. I know some of this is controversial, but I'm just being real with you guys. 20-week longitudinal study done on sugar. 2 control groups. One group ate 10 grams of sugar a day. The other group ate 100 grams of sugar a day. Calories and protein were the same across both groups. All right. Which group lost more weight in 20 weeks? Raise your hand if you're going to go with the 10 gram sugar a day group lost more weight. Anybody? Raise your hand if you think the 100 gram sugar a day people lost more weight. Raise your hand. Okay. What if you think both? Okay, it's actually both. Because calories and protein were equated. Because we know calorie controls not just how much weight you lose, but how much fat you burn, right? So you got to think, like 100 grams of sugar a day, that's almost torture in a good way. Because you would be so hungry if you ate like 5 cupcakes a day, while in a deficit, versus being really clean, which is also torture, in my opinion. Not having any sugar, because I love sugar, but what I'm saying is moderation is the way to go. Sugar alone is not responsible for funky blood sugar and crazy appetite while dieting. The lack of protein is, okay? Protein is highly satiating and it stabilizes blood sugar. Stabilizes blood sugar and ghrelin and cortisol, okay? The reason why people get really hungry when they don't get any sleep is because their stress levels are a lot higher, and that stress leads to a spike in ghrelin hormone as well. Also, if you woke up at 5 a.m. instead of 9 a.m., you'd have a bigger window that you need to eat. So that's another strategy. Just try sleeping more. Eating 4 meals a day. Okay, this is good. So let's say Coach Evan recommends that you eat about this many grams of protein a day because that's what's optimal. Then you're going to want to hit this many meals to achieve that. Now, if we just did 2 meals in a day, that's like 62 grams of protein per meal. That's not really doable. Most people think, I'm going to eat 3 meals a day because that's the traditional American way. Most people need to hit about 5 meals a day to really hit their protein. And a meal could be a protein shake. That could be a protein shake. That could be some, 6 ounces of chicken. That could be, Greek yogurt with a protein shake. All these things, eggs. It can look different, okay? I will say that the body likes to get food at the same time every day as well. Most everyone can improve their metabolism to a degree, okay? Talked about that. Okay, keep going. All right, so less fuel or calories over time means less energy. And this is where a lot of people go wrong when it comes to dieting. They've been dieting for 20 weeks and they're like so hungry and they're low energy and they don't even want to work out anymore. Well, they just ruin their body, okay? So as you shrink, so does your metabolism. It's called metabolic adaptation. And that's the main reason why people plateau after 4 weeks on a diet, because their body has shrunk, and so has their metabolism. So don't diet longer than 16 weeks. I've never dieted longer than 18 weeks, and that was for a competition. Adding muscle is the only way to significantly increase your resting metabolism. Yeah, that's true. Resting metabolism. All right. Recommended protein intake. Okay. So this is an actual formula that I've seen probably 6 or 7 different formulas out there. This is the one that I like the best. But you gotta do a little math. So if you're 150 pounds, am I gonna recommend 150 grams of protein? No. That's a little bit too high for the average person. So you actually are closer to 130 based on this calculation, because it's accounting for muscle mass, lean body mass right here. Is if you're trying to calculate protein without your muscle mass, you're doing it wrong. So, all right, why do I have to track my calories? I don't want to track my macros. It's so boring and repetitive. Well, so is going to the doctor. So, registered dietitians on average we found to be off by up to 300 calories a day when eating intuitively. Well, I'm just going to eat how I feel. I've done this long enough. I don't need to do that. Well, that's a potential of a 2,100 calorie difference a week. That's enough to really thwart your progress for sure. All right, cardio. We talked about that. So let's talk about this one. LISS or HIIT. Y'all know what that is? Low intensity steady state, which is like Stairmaster. And then HIIT, which is like sprints, high intensity interval training, like 1 minute on, 1 minute off, 1 minute on. Do that for like 8 rounds or something. Those are your only real options when it comes to controlled cardio in the gym. People love to go for jogs around the neighborhood, but that's really not optimal for burning fat at all. It's just going to make them tired. So the main thing to consider is how great of a deficit are you in, okay? So a lot of people for a long time thought, cardio is making my bodybuilder here lose too much muscle. So therefore cardio makes you lose muscle. No, the deficit was too great, right? That's why. So he was losing more than 1% of their body weight per week. That's the key ticket. That's the golden rule, right? This will lead to muscle loss, whether or not cardio is. If I put you on 1,000 calorie deficit and you're starving yourself, it doesn't matter how much cardio you do or do not do, you will absolutely burn muscle. Yeah. Fat burning is happening right now. Yep, we talked about that. Oh, here's one. One study compared 3 groups: resistance only, cardio only, or resistance and cardio. Looking only at fat loss, which group do you think did the best result? That's what you would think, but it's actually A. It's weird because you think, well, they're burning more calories, right? What ends up happening with this group is the cardio is done sandwiched on top of the resistance training, and it weakens and fatigues the person where they can't push as hard and do as much resistance. They're doing less volume with their weights. So it sabotages the muscle gain, which is affecting your caloric burn. Apparently, I don't know how it works. There's a lot of factors. Okay. Calorie tracking apps like this. I use this one. I've had this longer than I've had a smartphone. How is that possible? Well, they had a website a long time ago. How to hit your protein. Remember, you need that much. So, like if you eat 40 grams of protein for breakfast, you're already off to a good start, right? It's going to be easier to hit your protein throughout the day. If you skip breakfast and then you barely eat like a bird, like a tuna salad, you're not going to be set up for success for the rest of the day. I'm just being real. Here's some good sources of protein. I'm going to go real quick through each one of these. Cottage cheese, I don't like because cottage cheese I don't like because it does cause constipation because there's like no fiber in it, and it just makes, I don't know why, it just does that really quickly for me. Greek yogurt is really good because you can get it to be, you're never gonna not want to eat Greek yogurt. It always tastes good. Protein powder, I do that every day. I do protein powder every day. Egg whites on a cut, I always eat egg whites with maybe a whole egg here and there, but mostly egg whites because it's the most voluminous protein when cooked. Chicken breasts, I actually really like chicken breasts. It's kind of an old staple, but you're not going to beat it. Deli turkey, I don't do any deli meats of any kind. This is just all my opinion. Canned, I don't do anything canned. Beef jerky, no, that's not really food. Ground beef, I do ground beef, but not when I'm dieting. Only when I'm trying to bulk up. So there you go. So let's talk about some supplements here. If you're hitting your protein, let's say you need to get 140 grams of protein, but you're only hitting like 110, you need an extra 30 grams a day. Choose something like this. This is going to be, actually I don't know if that price is correct. I think that's needs to be updated, but if you want to get like 50% off, just do auto ship and use my code for that. I recommend a third-party tested brand like Lifetime. Okay. rich in leucine, 5% lactose. So what's the difference between isolate and lactose? So isolate and concentrate. Isolate only has 1% lactose. So if you're lactose intolerant, this is a really good option. It's the best. It's the highest quality protein in the gym, in the store. So collagen peptides, we're almost done. And so what you want to do, you want to sit down, create a goal, write it down, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time bound. You want to find out where you are on this chart, see if that's good, and what direction you need to go. Because if you're too lean, you need to gain weight, you need to build muscle. If you're not lean enough, you need to burn fat. Okay? So I want both of you guys to scan that code, if you will, just to get the discount on supplements as like a reward system. Mm-hmm. And I offer nutrition, coaching, consultations for free for your first time. And if you want to hire me as your coach, then we can sit down and talk about that. You can text me. So thank you for listening.